tonight on The Goat Show.
3,332 IU a day increased free testosterone by 20% in men.
Not if you take the right magnesium.
Right. It's basically overkill, literal overkill.
Yeah, you got neurons in places you never even thought.
So rain is a nootropic.
Exactly, whatever works.
Welcome to The Goat Show, the show where we celebrate and debate all things great. My name is ZiLLY, a.k.a. Ravine. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Fresh and Deezy. Gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Normally I ask how you feel, but I do want to know how you're feeling today. But I want to know, do you feel like you're clear-headed today? Or do you feel like you got a little bit of brain fog? You know, maybe you're slacking a little. How are you feeling today?
I never slack. I keep it blue. So my brain is firing at 100% at all times.
I haven't quite ingested enough caffeine yet this morning, but we're getting the gears turning. I might have a slight caffeine dependency, but that's okay.
Man, well, you know, I'm getting there, but man, I woke up this morning. I didn't even know where I was because we're in this move. You know, I keep thinking I'm in Gainesville now. I'm in where we are now. You know, I feel groggy, and I knew, you know what, we got to talk to somebody about this. We got to fix this problem I have. Okay, so with that said, today we have a guest coming on shortly. That is, he's an expert in nootropics. From what I understand, nootropics are supplements, any different things you can take to help keep you focused, keep you sharp. Help get rid of that brain fog, and overall has a lot to do with longevity and health. So, for anybody watching out there, if you're a producer, if you want to be better in your life, if you want to do more, definitely do not miss this episode. But before we get to our guest, Fresh, what do the goats out there watching got to do?
You got to like, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment, and send it to everybody because everybody needs to do better.
Before we begin, a quick word from our sponsor.
Water, the source of life. It's been privatized, polluted, abused, and reused. Do you know what's in your water? Drugs, plastics, chemicals, pesticides. But there is hope. There are people working around the clock to make a difference. The solution is advanced filtration that not only removes toxins, but balances the pH in the water. Go to centuryh2o.com to tap into wellness.
All right, we're back. Our guest today is none other than a gentleman by the name of David Tomen. I found David when I was trying to figure out ways to help someone in my family who's struggling with memory issues, struggling with clarity. As you get older, these things happen. But yes, he is a nootropics expert. He goes by the Nootropics Expert on YouTube, and he is our guest today. David, welcome to the Goat Show. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling fantastic. Thank you for having me.
So, like I said, I was just searching YouTube, trying to figure out, this family member who I care very much about. She's been struggling with certain things, as she gets older. And so I kind of went down this vein of okay, there's the traditional path with allopathic medicine, neurology, that type of thing. But then at the same time, I'm paranoid. I don't know about all you guys, but I get paranoid about just giving somebody a bunch of pills and hoping it works out. So decided to look in some alternative therapies, alternative things that maybe we could do. I came across your YouTube page. Definitely have a lot to talk about. You are super knowledgeable. We consulted with you, and just up front, I'm just going to say, anybody out there, if you really are interested in this and you want to, maybe talk to someone and get your protocol, I highly recommend David for sure. He knows exactly what he's talking about and very organized and just great all around. But before we get in all that, David, I want to ask you, we ask our guests this question who come on, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
If I could have any superpower, what would it be? I think it would be anybody on this planet, any fellow human being that had a problem with their brain and it was really messing up their life, that they could discover natural nootropic supplements that would help them fix that and live a better quality of life. Simple.
All right. So you already have the superpower.
That's my mission, is to try to heal the world.
Yeah. Okay. That's a noble mission. That's great. From superpowers to superhero origin stories. Let's maybe give some people an idea of your life before maybe you became the nootropics expert. Where did you grow up? What was your life like?
I was born a poor black child on a little farm in southwestern Ontario. I grew up in a place called I grew up on a farm in southwestern Ontario, about 1.5 miles north of the Lake Erie shore.
I'm in Toronto, actually.
Are you really? There you go. So just go down the 401. 2 hours later, you'd run into Chatham, which is where I grew up. I actually went to school. My first grade 1 was in Charing Cross, which was this little speck of a village on number 3 highway and on Charing Cross Road. And then they built a new school for the local farming community. And I spent the rest of my adolescence either working on the farm or working in local orchards, or going to school in Blenheim, Ontario. And I was there until I was 18 years old, and I absolutely grew to hate it.
Okay, I was going to ask you, were there lessons that you learned from living that farm lifestyle, or were you ready to just get off the farm?
Of course there was, but I didn't know it at the time. And, you grow up, we were 4 kids, and our job was to help mom and dad manage. We had 2.5 farms. It was about 250 acres. And it was hard work, man. Really hard to work. But I learned how to work then, I suppose. But I really, really hated the cold. And so at 18, I decided that I had had enough. I didn't even wait around for high school graduation. I told mom and dad that I was going to Europe. I jumped on Freddie Laker's plane in New York in a one-way trip from New York to London. And I flew to London at 18, didn't even wait around for my high school graduation.
What era would this be? Like what decade would this be?
1978.
Oh man, London, 1978. There was a lot going on there.
That was when disco was just starting. And so I ended up in London, and then I joined a tour group, and I spent 6 weeks traveling around Europe. And so that was amazing. I was with like 30 other kids my age, and we just had a blast. I mean, going through the Scandinavian countries and up through Finland to Russia and down through Eastern Europe and then Western Europe and then back down to London. And I ended up in London broke with not enough money to buy a return plane ticket. But I was too proud to call my dad and tell him that I needed money to buy a plane ticket. So I was stuck in West London with nothing to eat, no place to stay. I had enough money to rent a room in West London for a week, but I had no food. And so I'm thinking, I'm hungry. I've got to maybe if I get a job in a restaurant, I'll get something to eat, because I didn't have a place to lay my head. And McDonald's was just starting up there. And so I walked into the local McDonald's in Charing Cross Road, at Charing Cross Tube Station, and said, "Do you need any help here?" And within 11 days, I was a manager.
11 days. I mean, did you start at a normal position? They're like, this person seems like they know.
I started out flipping, making fries and flipping burgers and stuff like that. But I was American, right?
Right.
And they were just starting out there. Their only competition was Wimpy's. And so the people in England didn't know what a decent burger tasted like. And so they all fell in love with McDonald's, and I was the manager of store number 28. So anyway, and I ended up managing that restaurant, and then they put me in charge of 28 other restaurants in West London. So I was in one of those black cabs every day, just going around West London, supervising and managing and hiring people. And at night, I got a job as a DJ in a West London disco. And this is just when disco was starting up. like Saturday Night Fever and stuff. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can only imagine what that would be like. I mean, was it?
that was freaking amazing. I mean, I met so many incredible people. I ended up, one of my security guards there said, Rod Stewart is playing at the Hammersmith Odeon, which was just down the road. Do you want to go and see it? And I said, yeah. And so we ran over there after my show and ran right down to the front of the stage to watch Rod Stewart.
I mean, was he a name at that time, Rod Stewart?
Oh yeah, he was just starting. He was just starting to get really, really big. So stuff like that kept on happening. And but then at the end of the year, the executive, who were the board of the board that was operating McDonald's in South England, sat me down and said, look, we want you in main management, but you're going to have to get some kind of a degree, because all I had was a high school education. But I didn't have the funds to go to, Oxford or something. So I decided to go back to Canada and get a business degree. So I ended up in Waterloo, and I went to the University of Western Ontario to work on a Master of Business. And I did pretty good in there, but I had started a band. And I fell in love with, I was playing rock and roll all through high school. And I started up a band again in my first year of university. And so we just started doing gigs around. And I kind of like forgot about school, and I played rock and roll for a couple of years. And then when I realized I couldn't make enough money to make a living playing rock and roll, I mean, I was doing okay, but I wasn't making any money. Manfred Mann's Earth Band was my studio band when I did my demo.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Blinded by the Light, right? That's their famous.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the famous track. Wow.
Blinded by the Light.
Yeah. Still a great song. I mean,
So anyway, I tried to go back to school. Laurier wouldn't let me back in because I hadn't taken a leave of absence. And so I said, screw you. So I went to Western, and in London, Ontario, and I finished my business degree in Western. And I ended up, after I graduated from there, I ended up in Burlington, Ontario, and became the national sales manager for Goldwell Cosmetics. And so I was traveling across Canada, helping hair salons sell hair cosmetics. But during this time, it was right on the North Shore of Lake Ontario, and I learned how to sail, and I fell in love with sailing. And I was racing every Thursday on the CNC 46 that was owned by the chief of the Bronte Harbor Yacht Club. And I loved it, man. I mean, just racing sailboats is just unbelievably fun for me anyway. And I was having such a good time, and I was at the bar one night, and I wanted to keep on doing this. I mean, screw cosmetics. I just wanted to race sailboats and play on yachts. And so I was at the bar at the Bronte Harbor Yacht Club talking to my friend Blair. And I said, Blair, you know what? All the mega yachts go down to Antigua in the wintertime. They come down from the Mediterranean. They go to the Antigua in the wintertime. That's the hub for the Caribbean for mega yachts. And can I go down there and just crew on a yacht? You think that's possible? And he says, well, as a matter of fact, my mom lives in Antigua. And so I packed everything up, or I sold everything, and I flew to Antigua, and Blair's mom, Norma, picked me up at the airport, and I worked on a yacht called Sydney, which is a 112-foot ketch. Just a gorgeous yacht. We were a charter boat, and I lasted a month. I absolutely hated it. And because it was like I loved sailing, but I hated the hospitality industry, because crew charter is like managing hotel, right? And so my ego is like, if you want a rum, just go get your own freaking rum. It's and they didn't like that anyway. So I quit. There was a poster in English Harbor, which was the hub for these mega yachts. And this poster said boat phone. And I didn't know what that was, but it said boat in the title. So I figured, all right, I'm going to go see if these guys need some help. So I went to St. John's, which is the capital. And I walk in and I said, hey, I'm from Canada. And I know how to sell. Do you guys need a salesman? And they said, no, but would you mind being the sales manager? And so I ultimately became the group sales and marketing manager for Boat Phone, which ultimately ended up being bought by Cable and Wireless, which is a gigantic British telecom. And I helped build out the first cellular telephone company in the Eastern Caribbean. So my territory was Trinidad to Jamaica. And I was there for 9 years. I'm an island boy now. I mean, I absolutely love that. Um, I mean, we were pioneers in mobile, you know.
Is that just because communication between boats and being able to?
Yeah, it started out because the only way to communicate between yachts was satellite phones, and that was like $25 a minute. It was really, really expensive, and the equipment to put on board was really expensive too. And we figured out how for $1,500 they can install a cellular system on the yacht and patch it through to the rest of the yacht, no matter what size the yacht was. If it was 100 feet, if it was 225 feet, you know, they could have phones in all the rooms working through via cellular that would work off of towers from the local island. That's why it was called Boat Phone. But it turns out that people on the islands also wanted access to these phones too, right? Not just the yachties. And so we ended up with a local domestic cellular operation.
My understanding is you've been in Fort Lauderdale now for quite a bit, right?
I've been in Fort Lauderdale since 2001.
So was this after you were doing your thing in the Caribbean, or?
Yeah, so I was in the island for 9 years, and finally I had gotten married halfway into there to this gorgeous Cuban girl, and we were together there for 5 years or so. And then after the end of that 5 years, she decided that she wanted to leave the islands, and not married to her anymore. And I had run out of things to do. I was kind of bored, and there was lots of things going on up here in North America. And I decided that I wanted to get out of the islands and join the rat race. And so I ended up in Austin, Texas, and I was recruited to work as in business development for a company that was a broad cloud that was making some kind of a technology to help make the internet work faster. And that lasted for a year and a half, and then they just blew through something like $28 million in venture capital funds, and it ended up going broke. And my engineer friend from Antigua, who is living in Virginia now, I called him up and I told him what was going on. And I said, buddy, I'm in trouble. I need work. I don't know what to do though. And so I flew up and stayed with him and his wife in Virginia. And we talked and said, well, you're good at sales. Why don't you go sell cars? And I said, well, I don't know anything about cars, but I know lots about yachts. And they said, well, go sell yachts. Go to Fort Lauderdale and sell yachts.
Okay.
That's how I ended up in Fort Lauderdale. I got a job at a yacht broker, and I ended up becoming one of the first certified professional yacht brokers. And I sold yachts until 2008. And if you recall, 2008 is when the economy was flushed down the toilet, and I couldn't sell a yacht if my life depended on it. And I had to find something else to do. So I decided to put up my marketing shingle and just do local marketing.
Quick question about the yachts and sales. I'm just curious. I mean, do yachts sell themselves, or do you have a tip or two that you could give anybody who may be in the sales field that, you know, some of your tried and true, I don't know, tips or tactics for being able to get the sale?
You know what? That's a really, really good question. I mean, sales for me was never what you normally look at. The layperson looks at the idea of a salesperson, and is all you're doing is feeling a need. And so you get to know the person and you find out what they love. And if you can fill that love and provide it for them, you made a sale. You can never ram something down somebody's throat.
Makes sense. So you're doing all this, and my understanding, and correct me, because I hope you don't mind, but we started using the AI to stalk people. So we use Perplexity. And what it said was that at some point in your life, and this sort of begins your journey into health and wellness, you developed, I believe, what's called adult ADD. And so is that true? And if not,
That's really true. Yeah. The thing is, if you look back at my career, the career that I described, it was oftentimes I ended up in an executive position, right? Whatever I was on, I was always ended up near the top. And when you're in that kind of position, the way you are judged is the boss sits you down once a year and gives you a performance report. And so all the time that I was in Antigua, all the time that I was in Austin, and the boss would sit me down, it would be the CEO or the chief marketing officer, and sit me down once a year and say, David, you're a fantastic executive. You're a good salesperson. People love working with you. And they just, all of these accolades, but you've got to learn how to focus. And, I look back on my career and I could never get that next position. And I didn't know why, because I worked my ass off. And they said, and this happened every year. And so I went out and I bought the books on how to focus. And I bought the books on how to be a better executive. And I could not get it. I just thought, I thought it was me. I thought it was a moral failing. I thought that I just screwed up spiritually somewhere along the way and I was being punished for it. And when I ended up in Fort Lauderdale, I fell in love with the beach. And I found this gorgeous blonde on North Miami Beach. And we fell in love like immediately. And within 6 months, we were married. And the first year and Lara and I are still happily together almost 20 years later. But when Lara saw what was going on, and she said, there's a psychiatrist in Palm Beach I want you to meet. And you know how if you every once in a while in life, you run into a rock star in their profession, somebody that's just so good. This psychiatrist in Palm Beach was a rock star. And he sat me down in his office in West Palm. It could have been Palm Beach itself. Anyway, he sat down. Within 10 minutes, he diagnosed me adult ADD and PTSD. And for ADD, he prescribed Ritalin. For PTSD, that I was never able to figure that out and solve that until after I'd started Nootropics Expert. But for ADD, he prescribed Ritalin. And guys, the first day that I took Ritalin, it was like somebody turned the lights on in my brain. I mean, it was a miracle. For the first time, and I could focus. And I went, whoa, this is what normal people feel like, right? And so that just changed everything. And that went great for a couple of years. And then I started growing tolerant to Ritalin, and it wasn't working as well anymore. And I panicked. And I'm going, I finally find something that's going to work and it's going to stop working. I don't think so. I got to figure this thing out. Now, mind you, there were no websites on this back then. There were no books on this back then. I had to read clinical studies on PubMed to find out how Ritalin worked. I found out that it was a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. I didn't know what that was, but I saw the word dopamine in there. Mind you, I'm a marketing guy, right? I've got no neuroscience or no medical background. I'm reading this stuff and scratching my head and going, okay, there's dopamine in there. What does that mean? Maybe I don't have enough dopamine in my brain. How do you fix that? And when I was doing this reading, I also discovered that in ADD and ADHD, brain cell signaling was a problem, especially in the prefrontal cortex for executive function and stuff. And that was largely dependent on acetylcholine. So thinking maybe I don't have enough acetylcholine either. So I figured, all right, how do I fix this? So I found out that L-tyrosine was a precursor to dopamine. And I found out that CDP choline and L-car, acetyl L-carnitine, combination of those two supplements increased acetylcholine. And so we were living in Hollandale Beach at the time, and there was a plaza about a quarter mile away, and there was a GNC there. So I went and I got some L-tyrosine, CDP choline, and L-car, brought it home. Ritalin started working again.
Interesting. It worked in concert with the Ritalin, or was it like
Yeah, because it was just giving my brain, that stack was giving my brain the dopamine and acetylcholine and norepinephrine that Ritalin needed to work. And it couldn't work prior to that because I didn't have enough dopamine on the brain. It wasn't until years later where I found out why that was happening. Years later, I found out that these neurotransmitters decline as we get older. For example, dopamine declines by 10% per decade starting in your early 20s. So that means that by the time you're 50, you've got half the dopamine in your brain that you did when you were 21. And so that's a problem. But that is really a problem if you're ADD or ADHD. So anyway, I found out that if I took those 3 supplements, L-tyrosine, CDP-choline, and L-car, when I took my Ritalin dose, Ritalin worked. Each time I took Ritalin, so that morning and noon, I was able to reduce my dose of Ritalin from 30 milligrams to 20 milligrams. I took that twice a day, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you would crash because the stimulant would wear off. I found out that if I took these 3 supplements again at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I avoided the crash. And so that was my introduction to nootropics. I still had never, ever heard the word nootropic.
Where did that word even come from? Because I just remember being in LA, and then it became, in the tech startup scene there. And then it just seemed like one year it was like nootropics was a word that just popped up. So I don't know.
It popped on the scene in 1973. It was coined by a guy named Dr. Cornelius Gurgeu. He was a Romanian psychologist and chemist, and he was working with Dr. Pavlov in St. Petersburg. And they were messing around with a derivative of GABA and working on trying to, I think it was for motion sickness. And I think it was for the cosmonaut program. And so they came up with this derivative of GABA called paracetam. And it worked, except it didn't help them with motion sickness, but they found that even in healthy young people, it improved cognition and learning and memory. And they went, okay, this is pretty cool. And so they made a drug out of it. And when the rest of the world caught wind of that, there were other companies around the world that started making derivatives of paracetam. And so very soon you ended up with things like oxiracetam and pramiracetam and phenylparacetam. And so Dr. Gurgeu saw this happening, and he decided that he was going to name this class of drugs. And he said, okay, well, he used for the Greek, nu for mind and trepain to bend. So to bend the mind. So in 1973, that's where he coined the word nootropic. And when he did that, he also came up with a definition of what a true nootropic is. And this is what Dr. Gurgeu said: a true nootropic enhances memory and the ability to learn. It assists brain function under disruptive conditions such as lack of oxygen and electroconvulsive shock. It protects the brain from chemical and physical toxins. It increases natural cognitive processes, and it must be non-toxic to humans. That's the definition of what a true nootropic is. Now, since then, we've taken that and we've applied that to every kind of dietary supplement that works as a neuroenhancer or enhances the brain somehow.
Regardless of whether it's dangerous or not, I would imagine.
Well, unfortunately, one of the things that's happened since then too is, so that was 1973. One of the things that's happened is mainstream medicine has picked up on that and say, aha, Ritalin is a nootropic and Adderall is a tropic, and no, it's not. Because they don't follow the true definition of a nootropic that Dr. Gurgeu laid out. So my definition of a nootropic is any dietary supplement that helps the human brain that you can normally get any place in the world at your local vitamin shop or health food store. You do not need a prescription to get a nootropic. Anything that needs a prescription, any place, is a smart drug, not a nootropic.
All right, I'm gonna steal your terminology then from now on, because I always wondered about that. So you were on a smart drug and you were using nootropics to assist it. At what point does the transition happen? I'm assuming a transition happens off of smart drugs and purely into nootropics.
I didn't understand that question.
Do you get off the Ritalin ever?
That's a great question. Several years after that, I had started just a local marketing company during this period, and I wasn't making any money. And I figured that, all right, I've got to narrow my focus here and do something that people need. And I found an outfit in Delray Beach called AWAI, and they trained copywriters. And so I decided to get trained as a professional copywriter. And I was going to just start writing sales copy for companies. And I did. I become a professional direct response copywriter. I can prove it. And so I started writing sales letters and for different companies. And I was attracted to supplements. So I was writing sales letters mostly for the supplement industry. And I had, obviously, from my background, kind of loved writing supplements for supplements that help the human brain. And there was a company in England that had a stack called MindLab Pro, and I was introduced to him by a friend in Montreal, and said he needed some advertorials. So put me in contact with him, and I started writing advertorials for MindLab Pro. I wrote 5 of them. And the CEO of the company said, "This is the best sales copy I've ever seen." But while I'm writing this stuff, when you're writing a sales letter, if you've ever paid attention, you know that you've got to back it up to the yin yang. You've got to back it up with clinical studies. Otherwise, you're just blowing smoke, right? So if I say something is affecting NMDA receptors, where's the proof? Or if I say it's something that inhibits PDE4, where's the proof? So I've got to link to clinical studies. And so when I was writing these advertorials, I was realizing that there was no websites on this, no videos on this. Nobody else was writing about this stuff. And I'm going, all right, maybe I should start a website and just talk about supplements that help the brain. And that was the genesis of Nootropics Expert. And so I kept on writing sales copy for different companies, and I started Nootropics Expert, and finally Nootropics Expert became a full-time job. And I stopped working for other companies. But Nootropics Expert, that was founded in January of 2016.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. 2016, from what I read, was when you really went full force into this. So and I reason, I think it's important to say that is because anybody who's watching, right, like you just said, what's the evidence? What's the, this guy's calling himself Nootropics Expert. What's this all about? And that's when I went to watch your videos. Not only on the videos themselves were you going into real details, real like science detail studies, but then I visited your website, nootropicsexpert.com, I believe, and I started reading there, and I'm like, oh, this person has done the work. You want to know about any nootropic that you can think of, I think pretty much you've covered each one in detail with studies that you can read yourself and all that stuff.
I've done about 120 of them so far. I still got another 30 or so that are fairly popular that I need to write about. But I want to finish off and follow up on Fresh's question about using Ritalin and using. After I started, the reason why I brought this all up, after I started Nootropics Expert and I started writing, I decided that I was going to write an article on nootropics and ADHD and what I did to manage my symptoms with adult ADD and how I did it. And while I was researching and writing this article, I decided to try an experiment. So I took a Ritalin holiday for a year, and I just used my nootropic stack, and it worked. And I found out that not everybody, but a lot of people could manage their ADD and ADHD symptoms just by using natural nootropic supplements, if they were using the right ones. At the end of a year, I decided that I made an executive decision, and I decided to start using Ritalin again. I just figured that I'm older and this thing is getting crazy popular, and I needed the extra oomph that Ritalin provides me. So I have no regrets doing that. I use supplements that not only support its use, but if there's any damage from methylphenidate on receptors and transporters, I'm using supplements that help repair that damage, so I'm not experiencing any brain damage from using these stimulants. So I have no problem. So some people can do this naturally, and some people genuinely need the stimulants, but it needs the support of the supplements. to get the full benefit from it.
That's actually that's good to know. That it doesn't necessarily have to be an either or. It's whatever works, and then if it is
Exactly, whatever works.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this. This is very interesting to me. I'm pretty sure I have ADD of some sort, but when I was younger, I've been an athlete my whole life, and I've consistently been taking supplement stacks and pre-workout stacks, and and when I'm being athletic and I'm in that mode, all of those focus issues kind of go out the window, like they go away. And I'm curious if part of it being like focused on athletics, and then part of it being like I was getting a couple of these nootropics in my stacks that I wasn't aware of that could have been actually helping my mental focus. So I'm just curious, do you think that the like fitness and the athletic side of it can help with the ADD? Do you think like having the focus of being stronger, or whatever you're doing, if you're lifting, if you're trying to perform competitively, do you think that kind of helps people with their focus, just being more athletic and healthy all around?
Sure, it can, of course. I mean, a couple of the things that ended up happening after I was diagnosed adult ADD is another thing happened too. A few years after that, I ended up in the ER. I got really, really, really sick. I felt like I wanted to die. And my wife took me to the ER because she thought I was having a heart attack. Turns out it wasn't a heart attack. I was severely hypothyroid all of a sudden. There's a reason why I'm going down this route. When that happened, I genuinely felt like I wanted to die. That's how sick I felt. And they prescribed Synthroid, which is synthetic T4. Mainstream medicine has no idea how to manage thyroid. And I was once again, I ended up having to do my own research and I found out about natural desiccated thyroid. It's from just freeze-dried thyroid from a cow. It mimics the thyroid hormones found in a human. I couldn't get it because nobody in South Florida would prescribe it. Anyway, during this period, to Deezy, to answer your question, during this time when I was figuring all this stuff out, I made a couple of other decisions. One is I had to start exercising somehow, and I had to clean up my diet. And I did. So I just, not really heavy duty exercise, but enough to keep the blood flowing and muscles in decent shape. And just got rid of all white stuff. Got rid of processed foods. By white stuff, I mean white pasta, white bread, white sugar, get rid of processed foods. Just try to go back to the basics and use really, really basic foods. And that helped a lot. But I did need the supplements to fill in the gaps, because you can have the best diet on the planet with the best organic food, and you're still going to be nutrient deficient. And I've got the clinical studies to prove that, because of industrial farming. I mean, think about it. 100 years ago, there was no such thing as a dietary supplement industry. Today, it's a $70 billion industry. Why? 100 years ago, we didn't need it, because we were growing our own stuff, and it was fresh. And our body was getting the nutrients that it needed. But today, with industrial farming, this is a whole other conversation. And it would take too long to describe it. But by the time that plant gets to your animal, or it gets to your plate, or the animal gets to your plate, it's so depleted of nutrients. Even organic, healthy food is so depleted of nutrients that there was, in the clinical study that was published, several of them been published, one just very, very recently, that every American is deficient in minimum 2 or 3 specific nutrients. Magnesium is, yeah. Another one is omega-3s, because we don't eat fatty fish 3 times a week. Other one is vitamin D, because the only other way that you can get vitamin D is by lying nude in the sun for a couple of hours every day, and none of us can take the time to do that. So, yeah, that's why supplements are so critically important for us to survive in this environment.
With the so we're talking about nutrients that we need: magnesium, vitamin D, omega-3s. And I want people to come to you and really get the. I'll just say personally, I have, along with the person that I described before, who we both did, and the consultation was like, I mean, it was off to the races the moment we started. David, you don't waste a single minute. It's an hour and you don't waste a minute. It's like, okay, you're gonna take this and here's why, boom. And if you really want to get into it, here's the article and the studies, boom. So just personally, I can vouch that at least getting a consultation with David is an enlightening experience at the minimum. And then you did give us a stack and everything, and I would want people to come to you for specifically the details of that. But in general, are there any, just for the average person of any age, any whatever, are there a couple of nootropics that you would recommend that are just like general, like everybody should take these? You don't need to dial it in. Just take these, however many times a day. Are there a few that you would recommend?
Yeah, all ages. Magnesium, like Fresh mentioned, average human needs 400 milligrams of magnesium every single day. Why it's so important: magnesium is involved in it's a cofactor in the synthesis of 600 different enzymes. You need it to make dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin and GABA. You need it to make red blood cells. You need it to make myelin, protective coating around axons. You need it to make RNA and DNA.
The easiest way to describe it is there's no major function in your body that doesn't require magnesium.
Thank you.
There's not a single function in your body that doesn't require it.
But you got to make sure that you're getting the right kind of magnesium, because so when it comes to minerals, for nootropics use, if you want to get it into your brain, the minerals have got to be chelated, and the vitamins need to be natural and not synthetic, so that your body is not trying to convert anything.
So I have a question about this. So from my understanding, eating supplements, the bioavailability is a lot less. So like for me, I take my magnesium on the bottom of my feet before bed in an oil, because of like, for example, to get 400 milligrams of magnesium through an oral supplement, you would have to, like, with that magnesium comes a bunch of other stuff in that supplement that becomes laxative when you take it that high.
Not if you take the right magnesium. Yeah, there's there are a couple of university professors. I forgot what school it was. They were trying to figure out what form does magnesium need to be to rapidly get it across the blood-brain barrier, and they came up with magnesium L-threonate. So magnesium L-threonate is probably the best option. It helps the rest of your body, and it does all the things that we talked about, but it also rapidly crosses the blood-brain barrier and provides the benefits that where magnesium is used in your brain. You can also use magnesium glycinate or biglycinate or taurate or malate. The things like magnesium oxide and magnesium citrate have a hard time crossing the blood-brain barrier. So, I mean, they can help the rest of your body. I mean, they can help you go to the bathroom, but magnesium L-threonate or biglycinate are probably the best. Use it as a nootropic, and at 400 milligrams doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do that every night before bed, every single night, day after day, you'll build up your magnesium stores.
So omega-3s and vitamin D, I guess you would say those are also things that just standard.
Vitamin D is an interesting one because you got to figure out vitamin D is a steroid, so you got to know how much to use. And get your labs done. I'll tell you a little story. I've been doing this for a long time. I was using 5,000 international units of vitamin D every day for years, and I thought I was good because I live in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, people come down here on vacation in the wintertime for the sun. There's lots of sun down here. I got my urologist did my labs. This is about 4 years ago, and I was in the bottom third of the bell curve for vitamin D, which shocked me. I was like 20 nanomoles per liter, I think. So I increased it to 10,000 international units, and the next time I had my labs done, I was 80 nanomoles per liter. So I was up in the safe zone, the upper third of the bell curve. And I continue to use 10,000 international units of vitamin D every single day. And every time I get my labs done, I'm still at 80 nanomoles per liter. I mean, the bottom line here is what I'm trying to say is start using vitamin D, start with 5,000 IU, but a month down the road, get your labs done and find out if you're taking too much or if you're taking not enough, or what you need to know what the dose of vitamin D is that you need. And then, change to that dose and just keep on doing it every single day.
And then I would like to cite something that kind of backs this. This is a 2011 study in hormone and metabolic research found that 3,332 IU a day increased free testosterone by 20% in men.
So I just want to, this is the magnesium oil that I use. It's Zextine magnesium chloride.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's what I've found works for me. But yeah, I don't. And then this is the methylene blue that I use.
Okay, so this is what I want to get into. Okay, David, all the homies, as I like to call them, they're all, no matter, I mean, I guess around our age, in our 30s, early 40s, a couple in the 50s, methylene blue, the blue craze. Everybody wants the blue brain. So surprisingly, I'll reveal this about, kind of the stack you gave me. Methylene blue was not in that stack. But I want to, there's a lot of people who are curious about this. RFK Jr. is on a plane putting blue stuff in his water. So tell us, what do you think of methylene blue? Is it what it's cracked up to be? Are there risks? What's your overall thoughts on this new wonder drug?
Yes to all of the above. One thing, there's no one pill solution to getting healthy. And that includes methylene blue. Methylene blue is, it was synthesized in 1876 by German chemist Heinrich Caro at BASF. You might recognize that he was a German company. It's still around. In 1891, German physician and Nobel Prize recipient Paul Ehrlich pioneered the use of methylene blue for the treatment of malaria. Methylene blue was created as a dye for blue jeans in the late 1800s. That's what it was for, to dye blue jeans, to make them blue. Paul Heinrich found out that methylene blue could help avoid and treat malaria. He discovered that when methylene blue was injected into animals in the lab, it would quickly concentrate in the brain and had an uncanny ability to selectively target diseased tissues in the body. It was Ehrlich who coined the term magic bullet for this unique action displayed by methylene blue, a term that is still used today. Methylene blue has since been used to treat dementia in cancer, chemotherapy, malaria, methemoglobulinemia, urinary tract infections, cyanide and carbon monoxide poisoning. As a nootropic, methylene blue is probably known best for enhancing mitochondrial function.
I just want to make sure it's clear for anybody. I'm assuming you are reading the article that you wrote on this. Like, I just want everybody to know, like, this dude is the expert. Like, anything that we're mentioning here, methylene blue or whatever we talk about, I think you pretty much have an article on your website that is detailed, has a YouTube video with it, and has all the studies cited. So I just want to make that clear that this is not, we're searching Wikipedia here. Like, this is your writing that, that you've put up. So just making that clear.
Every single word is written by me. I think methylene, the thing that people focus in on and why they feel the benefits of methylene blue so quickly is it increases levels of the catecholamines and acetylcholine because it boosts serotonin and norepinephrine. But the biggie is it donates electrons to the electron transport chain within mitochondria. So that's where you get an energy boost. So our energy during the day comes from our mitochondria in every single cell in our body. In our brain, we've got maybe 1,000 mitochondria because our brain is really, really energy hungry. And this adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, is made through the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle. And it takes a whole bunch of ingredients to make this adenosine triphosphate. um, like glucose and fatty acids, and then methylene blue steps in and it donates an electron donor and the electron transport chain to manufacture this thing. And that's how methylene blue works. You can do the same thing with CoQ10 because CoQ10 does exactly the same thing that methylene blue does in mitochondria.
That's so crazy. I was going to get into that. I have it on my list. It's literally here because I drink a energy drink, Rain energy drink, and they have coenzyme Q10 in it, and I love them. They definitely give me a huge brain boost and focus in. But the fact that you say that it gives you a similar thing to methylene blue is interesting. Will you talk more about that?
Well, there's not much to talk about. I mean, CoQ10 is electron donor, exactly like methylene blue is an electron donor in the manufacture of adenosine triphosphate. So it's, you don't want to use both of them. You use either or you get yourself into trouble. I mean, methylene blue does other stuff that CoQ10 doesn't, like its effect on norepinephrine and dopamine and serotonin, which is why methylene blue is contraindicated with monoamine oxidase inhibitors that are used as drugs and SSRIs. If you use methylene blue with an SSRI, you could cause serotonin syndrome, which can kill you. And if you use it with an MAOI, you could have a heart attack. So MAOI is just a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. Every one of our neurotransmitters has an enzyme that steps in and gets rid of it after a system uses it. In the case of dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin, it's monoamine oxidase. So if you inhibit that enzyme, we end up reusing those neurotransmitters, right? So that's what a monoamine oxidase inhibitor does. It helps us reuse those neurotransmitters. You don't want to use two monoamine oxidase inhibitors.
Right. It's basically overkill, literal overkill.
It's literally overkill. You just want to use one. When it comes to SSRIs, methylene blue is effect on serotonin. SSRIs boost the use of serotonin in your brain. You don't want to use two SSRIs. Right? Or something that an SSRI and something that directly increases serotonin levels, because it can result in serotonin syndrome, which is just an overdose of serotonin. Yeah. And so there's, every one of these natural supplements has got a side effect. A lot of them are very minor side effects. Most of them are non-toxic, can be used by most people. But when you start using drugs and combining some of these supplements with drugs, that's where you really have to pay attention, because you can cause real problems and kill yourself.
I should probably not be freewheeling with these drugs then, guys. Just trying whatever. I should probably get some help.
The funny thing is, like, when I started with methylene blue, a friend of ours got methylene blue and was using it as a nootropic, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna take it as a nootropic. And I took it, and I have IBS, and because it has like antifungal and like anti-inflammatory properties, that's where I notice the most. Like, not that I don't notice that I'm a little more sharp, but I mean, I feel like I'm always pretty sharp, so I didn't notice that as much. But in my gut, like with my gut health, it's been night and day.
Isn't it funny that you found something that, I know, these supplements are remarkable. They really are. I wrote an article on a leaky blood-brain barrier. It turns out that if you've got a leaky gut, you've got a leaky brain, and if you've got a leaky brain, you've got a leaky gut. So anything that you use to treat a leaky brain will help your gut too.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's the same kind of a barrier.
And your stomach also has neurons in it, like the brain.
Yeah, you got neurons in places you never even thought of.
I got to bring this up because this is a controversial one. Caffeine, coffee. Should we be drinking coffee, or should we? Because I see all these ads that are like, oh, I got my mushroom lion's mane. I'm done with coffee. I'm done with alcohol.
Well, let's talk about how caffeine works. Okay. Why caffeine is a nootropic? Caffeine is a nootropic because it boosts cortisol. It boosts the use of dopamine in your brain. those are the two biggie, and its primary mechanism of action is it inhibits adenosine receptors. So remember we were talking about how our mitochondria produces adenosine triphosphate during the day, and that adenosine attaches to receptors as we go through our day, and it's used. And so as more and more adenosine attaches to more and more receptors, you get sleepier and sleepier and sleepier. Caffeine inhibits adenosine receptors. So that's how adenosine keeps you alert, because it stops adenosine from working, right? But if you're going to use caffeine as a nootropic, you have to support its use, because it does jack up cortisol. And it does boost the use of dopamine. So you need to suppress that cortisol. You need to replace the dopamine that caffeine used, and you need to replace the B vitamins that, using caffeine, you pissed out, because it acts as a diuretic. So a good caffeine stack is, 500 milligrams of L-tyrosine, which replaces the dopamine, L-theanine and phosphatidylserine both suppress cortisol. So you suppress the cortisol that caffeine jacked up, and a bioactive B complex to replace the B vitamins that you pissed out because you were using caffeine. So that's a safe way to use caffeine as a nootropic.
That's literally what the back of an energy drink has in it. Like if you go look at the ingredients, it's all of those things, which makes so much more sense now. Like,
So rain is a nootropic.
well, all of them are technically, because they all have caffeine, but they always have the B vitamins. They always have the branched chain aminos. Like they always have those things in order to fill the gaps, and that makes sense why those are in there now. I didn't click till now.
I find when I use supplements, they make me tired.
Using the wrong ones, or you're using too much.
Got to get dialed in. You wrote a book called Head First. Is that basically the story of how you arrived at everything, or is it, or what is that book?
I decided to put out Head First because there's only so many people that will go to my website. And so I just decided to take the contents from my website and put it in book form for people that read books. And so the first version of Head First was self-published, and it was a PDF. And I was doing pretty good with that. But then I decided that I wanted to get it in bookstores. And so Head First, the second edition, is just a corrected and revamped version of the first edition of Head First. And it's available worldwide in hardcover, paperback, or for iPad or Kindle. I haven't yet created an audio version of it.
So actually, I'm gonna give you a hack for that, and it's something that I would recommend make the audiobook. But a friend of mine is writing a book of his own, but he's giving me drafts as PDFs. Just he hasn't put it out or anything. And I'm sitting there like, I love my buddy, but sitting and reading a book, 3 hours PDF, I don't know. So there is an app called Speechify. I recommend anybody out there who wants to read a book and doesn't have an audiobook version yet. You can grab whatever the PDF or whatever, put it in Speechify, and then I like to crank it up. I like to crank it up to about 1.75 speed, and then you can pick the person to read the book to you.
Oh yeah, I always get Snoop Dogg to read me everything.
You can get Snoop Dogg. I like Gwyneth Paltrow. It's like Pepper Potts is reading me my daily briefing. So still make the audiobook, David, of course. But I will say that if somebody out there wants the info now, but you're like, I don't want to read a book, just grab Speechify or something. You can pull it in and it'll read it for you.
All right. Thank you for that. I'll look at that.
Let's get into, because there's nootropics for people, young guns like us, I guess everybody who wants to get sharp and focus and all that stuff. But part of what, when me and the person that's older than me consulted with you, it was about memory, cognition, and a lot of that has to do with longevity, living, being sharp all the way through, however long your life goes. So what would you recommend as like basics for just improving quality of life in terms of longevity?
Good question. I decided when I never intended to start doing consultations, but there was a guy in his 80s in North Carolina. This happened about 6 or 7 years ago, that contacted me and said, would you do a consultation with me? I want my brain to work better. And he's in his 80s. And that kept on happening. So I decided that I was going to take a deep dive into what happens to the human brain as we get older. And I spent weeks researching this thing. And I ultimately ended up writing an article on best nootropics for the aging brain. And now I call it the best nootropics for longevity because it's a little bit more marketable, but it's the same thing. And a 30,000 foot view looking down on what happens to the human brain as we get older is basically 5 categories. I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head. I'm not looking at anything. Oxidative stress and free radicals in brain aging, synapse loss and brain shrinkage and brain aging, Alzheimer's and dementia and brain aging, vascular dementia and cerebral circulation or loss of blood flow. And the last one is neurotransmitter decline. And what I discovered is there's at least 12 different supplements that you can use for each one of those categories to restore whatever's going wrong there. The first one, for example, is, I don't know how much time we've got here, but the first category is oxidative stress and free radicals. Here we're talking about our mitochondria. We get our energy during the day from our mitochondria. And what our mitochondria does is they produce a thing called adenosine triphosphate. But when you're making energy in the human body, it's just like making energy in anything on this planet. There's always going to be a byproduct. So with cars, it's exhaust. With rockets, it's exhaust. With rust, it's with iron, it's rust. With the human body, it is free radicals. And all free radicals are pretty much largely, I mean, I'll have some neuroscientists argue about this, but to make it really simple, free radicals just stray oxygen ions. They're released during the production of adenosine triphosphate. And our immune system is designed to scavenge these free radicals before they cause any problems. The problem as we get older is our immune system is not as strong and our immune system can't keep up. And so these free radicals start running amok, they're not controlled, and they start killing proteins in cells. And when that happens, the cell stops working. And then nasty things start happening. And it can manifest in different kinds of diseases. How you put a stop to this is you provide your mitochondria with the tools that it needs to make adenosine triphosphate, scavenge these free radicals, and just get that energy production working the way it's supposed to. And I've got a handful of supplements that does that. I recommend 4 in that particular category: alpha-lipoic acid, CoQ10. What else is it? Alpha-lipoic acid, CoQ10, and acetyl-L-cysteine, which is one of my favorite supplements. I've been using it for a long, long time. That helps increase glutathione, which is your master antioxidant, and sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is a pretty amazing supplement. It's a really, really potent anti-inflammatory. They sell it to men for prostate issues and frequent urination, but it's also used for treating autism and traumatic brain injury. So it's a really potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. The combination of those 4 supplements will support healthy energy production in your mitochondria and scavenge the free radicals. So you stop the oxidative stress. Now, you would think that if we gave our body and brain the tools that it needed to make more energy, that we would cause more oxidative stress, right? That's just common sense, right? Make more energy, more oxidative stress. It turns out the opposite is true. When we provide our brain with the tools that it needs to work healthy, there's less oxidative stress. So that combination right there, just those 4 supplements, helps make more adenosine triphosphate. It scavenges the free radicals, and it helps repair brain cells. The second category is synapse loss. You've probably heard that our brain shrinks as we get older. After age 40, our brain shrinks by about 5% it loses about 5% of its weight per decade after age 40. So when you're 50, you've lost 5% of that weight, so your brain only weighs 95% of what it did when you were 21. And that gets worse and worse and worse as we get older. Most of that shrinkage is due to synapse loss. And synapses are kind of a big deal because synapses are directly involved in brain cell signaling. For you to create a memory, you're creating a new neural network. And to do that, dopamine neurons have got to be able to talk to each other. It does that via dopamine molecules that go from the end of one axon, which has got a synapse, to a neighboring axon, which is on a dendrite. That's brain cell signaling. That's how we encode a memory. Those synapses wear out and they just disappear, or they swell up and become dysfunctional. Nasty, nasty stuff. And I looked and looked and looked, and the only way that I found out that you could increase synapses is by boosting brain-derived nootropic factor. Brain-derived nootropic factor is natural. It's a nerve growth factor. It's a protein that naturally occurs in our brain. We need brain-derived nootropic factor to grow new neurons, to repair damaged neurons, to repair damaged dendrites, axons, synapses, receptors, transporters. Anything you can do to boost BDNF is going to be helpful. There is a whole school of research in depression in low BDNF. Interestingly, over the last decade or so, a lot of these SSRIs that psychiatrists are prescribing for depression, where they thought that it was because it was affecting serotonin that was helping half the people, it turns out that it wasn't the serotonin increase or serotonin use that was helping relieve depression. It was that they were increasing brain-derived nootropic factor.
This is all on topic for a question that's kind of interesting, but I feel like you came up from the time, so you might be with it. Psilocybin, magic mushrooms, a nootropic. There's a lot of studies going on about them repairing damage to your brain, helping regulate your receptors. What do you think about that? How are you feeling about potential science in that area?
I haven't done the research into psilocybin, but it probably increases brain-derived nootropic factor or nerve growth factor. That's got to be one of the functions. I'm sure that there's lots of other mechanisms of action, but that's got to be one of them. There's psilocybin, there's microdosing LSD, I did ayahuasca 5 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you describe that experience? Like what? Because people say you go into a trance and you see gnomes. I don't know. Is that am I?
Not gnomes, bro. Mech elves, my boy.
Mech elves. What did you experience? Is it worth people to go that route, or do you feel like you can just do your normal nootropic stack and be all right?
It's worth it if you work with a shaman that really knows what he's doing, or you could really fuck yourself up. It's really, really serious stuff. The first time that I did ayahuasca, I saw 2 universes shearing off of each other. And it was loud. It went boom, 2 universes. And I have no idea what that meant, but it changed my life. And Nootropics Expert is a result of that.
Interesting. Well, in what way do you feel like it changed your life? Just were you zooming out more, or?
I was suffering from depression a lot. I can't really nail it down to anything specific, but that just turned things around for me. And I came out of there going, okay, now I know what I need to do. Not sure what those universes shearing off of each other mean. Maybe it has something to do with, how they're talking about in UAP circles with other universes and stuff coming in and out of other realms. Maybe it says something. I don't know. I really don't know.
Do you foresee like a lot of growth in that area with your own personal experience? Do you see like there's going to be a lot of like that could be an emerging market soon, with?
Yeah, so long as it's used wisely. It's used wisely. You really, when it comes to using these psychedelics, man, you really have to work with people that really, really, really know what they're doing. If you try doing it recreationally, you can really mess yourself up.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Did you said you did it multiple times. The subsequent times that you did it, did you feel like you had similar,
It wasn't that dramatic. And after 5 times, I just thought, I got to stop. I can't do this anymore. I knew my limit. Going, okay, that's it. I got what I needed from this, and no mas.
I kind of had that experience with mushrooms where like the last time that I did it, was the last time that I did it because I had kind of a bad trip and feel like I've kind of got what I need out of it. However, that's not to say that I won't do it again, but I haven't felt the need to this point to do it again.
Yeah, you know in your gut and in your heart whether you should be attempting something like that.
well, I don't know about all this hippie stuff you guys are talking about. I want to get on the TRT. All right. I need to get muscles. I need to get fit, David. I need to be stacked. What do you think of this new trend amongst gentlemen, elder gentlemen?
I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy. I wrote an article on sex hormones in your brain. The thing is that people don't realize you've got estrogen and testosterone receptors in your brain, and I can come up the best nootropic stack specifically tailored for you, and it's not going to provide its full benefit if you don't have adequate levels of estrogen and testosterone. Period. It has nothing to do with sex. We need it. And I've talked to guys in their early 20s who are low testosterone, which is really, really sad. It's no fault of theirs. It's the environment that we're living in. We're surrounded by forever chemicals and plastics, and we can't get away from it. The microphone that you're using, the seat that you're sitting on, the headphones that you have on, the glasses that you're wearing, the containers that your food come in, your car seats, your clothes. It's just loaded with chemicals that are uncontrolled, and some of them are wreaking havoc on our hormones. And so I find guys in their early 20s that need to get hormone replacement.
They've been saying every generation has less testosterone than the previous.
Yeah, it's really sad, but thank God it's available.
So you feel, because and I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend about it, and it seems like the fear is always that once you get on it, you can't get off. Like you have to.
Oh well. If your body can't produce it, you got to get it to where it's someplace if you want to live a healthy, good quality of life. So what if you can't get off of it?
So what? I agree.
If some magic, your body all of a sudden starts producing all of the hormones that it needs by itself, fantastic. But if that doesn't happen, what's the big deal about there's so many different methods of getting testosterone and estrogen into your body and controlling it, right? I personally use injections, but it's critically important. You've got to be careful with it. I'll tell you, when I talked about 10 years ago when I ended up in the ER and I got deathly ill, and I found out that I was hypothyroid. One of the things that I thought too was there was something wrong with my testosterone levels. And so I had my labs done, and my labs came back and said my total testosterone was 799. Now, here in America, the range goes from 250 to 1100. So any mainstream doctor would look at that and go, you haven't got a problem with testosterone. You're fine. A lot of the young guys that I talk to are down around 250 or 300. I was 799, and I felt like shit. And I went from doctor to doctor to doctor trying to convince somebody to let me try something. And finally, I found a nurse practitioner hooked up with Life Extension here in Fort Lauderdale, told her what was going on. She did my labs, came back with the same result, my total testosterone, something like 799 or 800. She injected testosterone pellets into my butt, did labs again, my total testosterone was 1300. So 200 over the bell curve. That is where I feel normal. I'm not saying that's where you're going to feel normal or any other guy is going to feel normal. That's where David Tomen feels normal. I need to be at 1300 total testosterone. I know that I need 2 milligrams per week of Arimidex to control the estradiol or the estrogen that is being produced because I'm increasing testosterone. I know that I have to go to One Blood and donate a pint of blood every month to keep my red blood cell count down because I'm doing this, but it's manageable. And it's not hard. I find that injections are the easiest for me, so I just do a half a cc twice a week, 1 milligram of Arimidex twice a week, and go to One Blood and donate a pint of blood every month. And I feel good.
All right. Well, I mean, I've always felt that, and I like how your approach is through everything you've told us, that it's not necessarily, okay, you got to do only supplements. You can, if there's traditional medicines that work, great. If you need to go the psychedelic route, if you need to, see what that's like, with at least, I mean, I think what's important to state is that be careful, seek out experts who know what they're talking about, can explain these things in a way that makes sense. That's why we're having you on the show. And that's why, it was really helpful to consult with you.
See, if you take CBD by itself, it's fine. However, I also would say CBD needs like a 1-to-1. I would do 1-to-1 THC CBD, just for your body to metabolize it better.
I just don't like the way THC makes me feel.
It kind of is counterintuitive to all of the nootropics.
We're here to get focused.
This is why the methylene blue doesn't give me a lot of like mental clarity, but it helps my gut. It's because I'm fighting it.
You're smoking weed.
But do what works. I mean, thank God all this stuff is available to us. If we're paying attention, right? And we're willing to read a little bit, and we learn how to listen to our own bodies. We can have a better quality of life because all of this stuff is available to us. We just have to figure out what we need to use to do that.
I have one last question, just specifically about recommended nootropics, because you wouldn't probably associate this with nootropics, but you talk about sleep, and a lot of people talk a lot about how much you should rest, what kind of rest you should get. I think you do have an entire protocol based around sleep, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on sleep, and what would maybe be something someone could take to help with that?
You encode long-term memory during sleep. I mean, that's about as basic as you can get. If you want to be able to remember something that you read or something that you studied, you got to have some sleep so you can encode that memory. Otherwise, you're not going to. I mean, sleep is needed to just help repair our body and brain. There's so many different things that we need sleep for other than memory. But yeah, I came up with a sleep protocol that works for me, and it turns out that it works for most of the people that I talk to. You got to adjust the dosage based on how the person reacts to each ingredient. But yeah, I've got a protocol for sleep. It's pretty basic. I can go through that for you if you like.
Sure. I think we got maybe 10 minutes. So if you feel like
so we've got 4 major neurotransmitters. We've got 2 excitatory neurotransmitters. Those are dopamine and acetylcholine, and 2 inhibitory neurotransmitters, serotonin and GABA. They need to be in balance. They need to be increased. I recommend using serotonin and GABA before bed because they help you sleep, but they'll help put you in a better mood for the rest of the day, the next day too. So I use 400 milligrams of magnesium L-threonate. This is about an hour before bed. 400 milligrams of magnesium, 500 milligrams of tryptophan. Tryptophan goes on to make serotonin, which goes on to make melatonin. 250 milligrams of pharma-GABA. I don't recommend synthetic GABA. Pharma-GABA is made by a Japanese company. They grow it on Lactobacillus hilgardi bacteria. Then they harvest the GABA. It's the same form of GABA you naturally produce in your gut. So 250 milligrams, when you take it as a supplement, it rapidly gets into your brain. 400 milligrams of L-theanine, and 500 milligrams of lemon balm extract. And lemon balm extract works because it's a GABA transaminase inhibitor. And what that means, GABA transaminase is the enzyme that gets rid of GABA after our system uses it. If we inhibit that enzyme, we end up reusing the GABA that's already there. So essentially, when you're using pharma-GABA and lemon balm extract is potentiating the way pharma-GABA works. Now, I was using that stack there for sleep, worked great, but I was still waking up 2 or 3 times a night. So I added CBD oil. That solved the problem. I personally use 50 milligrams of CBD. Some people can use just 20 milligrams of CBD. I get my CBD from Charlotte's Web because it's pure and organic. It's owned by some brothers that own a great big hemp farm. There's no THC in it, but the CBD helps me sleep through the night.
Do you smoke it?
Just gummies.
Well, what about THC? I mean, people are saying that it has therapeutic properties. What are your thoughts on THC?
You got to use THC with CBD because CBD complements so you don't have to rush what THC does.
THC, CBD, and CBN and CBQ. If you're not taking all those 4 together, I don't actually believe you're taking it medicinally. And look, I smoke it every day, but I'm not going to pretend it's medicinal.
It very well could be. I honestly have not put enough time into studying CBD and CBN. I mean, I kind of got.
To be fair, I have known people that you would be surprised who are in executive positions and things who will privately admit that it helps them sleep or helps them, but again, everybody out there is watching with all this stuff. Whatever works for you, and definitely do your due diligence, do your homework. Don't just do like I do before I met David and just take a bunch of stuff and hope that it all works out. And in the case of nootropics, I would recommend that you all consider consulting with David. We'll put all your information in the show notes, including and that was also very, just as a business person, right? It was so simple. Here's the Calendly, here's the PayPal, pay for the consultation, get in the Calendly. It's easy. It's a Zoom, and you were very thorough. I mean, I was really impressed, and it's just from the moment we started, quick get to know you session, and then it was like, all right, here's the stack, here's what it is, here's the materials, and then all the subsequent emails I got were all super detailed, and you have all the articles on your website. So even if you're not ready to do a consultation, if you have a question about anything, like I'm pretty sure any nootropic, for the most part, that you've heard about, you'll find probably an article that or something that you've talked about.
Yeah, all this stuff is available for free.
And for people watching, do you have is this something on your website where you recommend specific products at all, or do you kind of just let people choose their own?
It depends. If there is a particular product that I use, I'll recommend it. I've got certain companies that I favor because I find that their stuff is more pure and that it works. And yeah, so I've got affiliate relationships with several different supplement companies. And some of the harder stuff to get, like the racetams, I search out sources for that because they are harder to get. Things like phenibut and picamillin are harder to get. People want to use them. I've found companies for that. CBD, I like Charlotte's Web. For kratom, I like Super Specioso. So yeah, I've got specific companies that I've developed a relationship with, and they pay me for promoting their stuff.
Sure. I mean, yeah, if they're doing the right thing, then it doesn't matter. All right. Well, David, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the Goat Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's super informative. And this was something that a lot of people, at least in my circles, is super interested in. So I'm at least going to send it to them. At the very least, I'll send it to them, and I'll tell them. I say, you can do the meth blue, just don't do the CoQ10, right?
Right.
That's what I got to say to them. I don't know. Okay. What I'm going to say is you should probably talk to David and figure this out. As we do on this show, as it is the Goat Show, we like to toast the goats. And you certainly are the goat, at least of nootropics, but in general.
Cheers.
So cheers to you.
I'm the only person here drinking a nootropic right now.
I already finished mine, bro.
I did kind of.
Here's my blue bottle.
Pressure's gonna get that blue brain, according to Saladino.
My brain's already blue, man. It's okay. Look, if you think that dyeing my brain blue is the worst thing I've done to my brain, we gotta have a conversation.
That's true. That's true. Twinkies at the age of 10 probably did worse to me than any nootropic will do. So
look, of all the dyes that I've ingested, I'd say that Red 40 has probably done more damage, but I don't know.
All right. Well, again, David, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate you. We'll put all the notes. Check out the description on the video. We'll put all the notes there. And if you want to consult with David, I think it's just nootropicsexpert.com. Pretty much they can start there, and you can deep dive into so much on his website. And with that, just want to say, Fresh, what do the people got to do? What do the goats got to do before we get out of here?
You gotta like, you gotta subscribe, you gotta drop a comment, you gotta hit the bell, send it to your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, and
don't play with these drugs without knowing what you're doing.